Nobody ever saw this coming. At just 45 years old, Pastor Tim Rogers has finally broken his silence about the tragic rumors surrounding the death of his beloved wife. What he revealed left the entire church community and fans around the world completely speechless. If you thought you knew the whole story, think again. Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about Pastor Tim Rogers and his heartbreaking journey. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most heartbreaking and controversial stories to hit the gospel world. Pastor Tim Rogers, a man known for his powerful sermons, soulful singing, and inspiring presence, has finally decided to address the swirling rumors and unanswered questions surrounding the tragic death of his wife. For years, whispers have floated around about what really happened, about what was being hidden, and why Pastor Rogers chose to remain silent for so long. Some called it a private pain. Others suspected a deeper story that needed to be told. In this video, we're not just scratching the surface. We're unpacking the emotional truth behind Pastor Tim Rogers' journey through unimaginable loss, the pressure from his congregation and the public, the speculations that refuse to die down, and finally, his decision to speak out. You'll hear everything: the timeline of events, the shocking allegations, and most importantly, what Pastor Tim himself has now confirmed. So, grab a seat, because this story is full of emotional twists, unexpected turns, and revelations that will leave you questioning how well we really know even the most celebrated leaders among us. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment. Before the tragedy, before the rumors, before the heartache, there was a love story that many admired. Pastor Tim Rogers and his late wife were seen as the picture of unity, faith, and devotion. They met long before fame touched his life. When both were simply two young dreamers trying to live out God's plan, their relationship became a testimony in itself. Tim often spoke about how his wife was his rock, the one who stood by him during the rough early days of ministry. When the churches were small and the offerings barely paid the bills, she was there through the doubts, the criticism, and the heavy burden of leadership. In many sermons, Pastor Tim would smile warmly as he talked about her. He shared stories of their long conversations, her prayers over him before he stepped on stage, and her unwavering belief that he was destined for greatness. Their marriage wasn't perfect. No marriage is, but it was real, grounded, and deeply rooted in their shared faith. For years, fans and church members alike saw their bond as proof that true love based on God's foundation could survive anything. They raised a beautiful family together, built ministries side by side, and weathered the storms of life with a kind of strength that seemed almost unshakable. But here's where it gets heartbreaking. Despite all the public smiles and private prayers, there were silent battles happening behind closed doors that most people never knew about. Battles that would soon come to the surface in the most painful way possible. And this is just the beginning of where the story takes a darker turn. Underscore. While the world saw a strong, happy couple smiling on stage, the truth behind the scenes was far more complicated. Friends close to the Rogers family later revealed that Tim's wife had been silently battling health issues for years. But only a very tight circle knew just how serious things were. She was a woman of immense strength, never wanting to burden others with her pain. She kept serving, kept smiling, kept showing up for her family, her husband, and their ministry, even on days when she was barely holding herself together. Behind the radiant glow that people admired was a woman struggling with physical exhaustion, emotional turmoil, and private moments of despair. Some say she would pray for hours alone, asking God for strength, not just for herself, but for Tim to keep him covered in prayer while she quietly suffered in silence. The pressure of maintaining appearances, both as the wife of a public figure and as a woman of faith, weighed heavily on her. There were times when her body was crying out for rest, but the demands of ministry and public life offered little room for pause. The congregation depended on her. Tim depended on her. Their children looked up to her. So she pushed through. But here's where the story starts to shift dramatically. Rumors began swirling among church members. Whispers in the pews hinted that something wasn't right. People noticed her absences at key events. They noticed the forced smiles. They noticed how Pastor Tim, once always energized and joyful, began to seem different, tired, distracted, burdened. Behind closed doors, The family was grappling with decisions no family ever wants to face. Doctors' visits became more frequent. Prayer requests became more desperate. Faith was tested in ways they never imagined. But the public, they still didn't know. The Rogers family kept it quiet. They hoped. They prayed. They fought. They believed that somehow, someway this storm would pass. Yet fate, as we all know, can be cruel. And just when it seemed like things might turn around, just when it seemed like healing might finally come, destiny delivered a crushing blow no one was ready for. Stay with me because the next part of this story will truly break your heart. __. It was a Sunday morning like any other. Pastor Tim Rogers had just delivered one of his most powerful sermons yet. A message about faith, about perseverance, about trusting God even when the road gets dark. The congregation was moved. Some wept. Others shouted amen from the pews. But what they didn't know was that as Pastor Tim stood behind the pulpit proclaiming hope and healing, his own world was quietly collapsing. After service, close friends say Tim rushed out of the church faster than usual. No meet and greet, no lingering handshakes, no smiling selfies with church members. Something was wrong. When he arrived home, the atmosphere was heavy. Family members were gathered, their faces etched with worry.